I wanted to make mention Jarrett's birthday party yesterday, because something quite funny happened that I need to introduce our lesson with. This is week 41 in the His Word devotional series, including all of Titus, Philemon, which is just one chapter, and the first chapter of Hebrews. Tonight we're going to talk about the slave that stole from his master. I hope you come back and hear that tonight. It's going to be a great study. But before we get there, Jarrett's birthday party was an obstacle course. If you've ever heard of American Ninja Warrior, Jarrett was the Ninja Warrior Captain Fastman, as he sometimes calls himself. And so we lined up several kids. We had cousins and people from different states come in and to love our child. It was fantastic. But we made the obstacle course, which had 8 obstacles. And I got the kids to the very first obstacle. And they lined up in a line. And I was excited and ready to go. We had medallions for them at the end. They had to go from obstacle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which circled around our entire backyard. Finished with this hay bale wall, which is really cool to climb over. And I was pumped. I couldn't wait for them to go. So, as you know, you get them to the starting line. You get to the right place, which was like herding cats. Once you get to the right place, you know how it is. Ready, set, go! And not does Jarrett alone take off, because it's his birthday, he goes first. Everybody took off. And so it was a bunch of kids go to the first obstacle, which was one skinny little climbing wall. And so I was like kicking and pushing kids out of the way. I wasn't doing that. But I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, wait, don't. Stop. So I had to pull them back to the starting line. Because, Jarrett, you got to go first. And I didn't clarify that. And that was on me. So the kids were like, oh, okay. So we got him to the starting line. Jarrett got up, dug his foot into the ground, ready, set, go, and he was off. 20 minutes later, he finally finished. Good job. I had to tell him to wait. Because what does everybody want? Their turn. They want to go. And so for us, as Christians, I really do believe this, that we all want our turn to be used by God. I believe you want it. I'm convinced you want to be a servant of God, and you want God to use you in a powerful way in your life. Well, what's it hard to do? Ready, set, wait. That's a challenge, isn't it? Well, back to the birthday party. It wasn't just a challenge to get the kids to wait. It was also a challenge to get the kids to the right place so that they can be ready. 2 thoughts this morning. Ready and wait. So first, how do we get ready? Because that's the challenge. I want to be used by God, and I know you do too, and I so appreciate your faith and willingness to serve. But how do I get ready so that God can use me? That's the question. Titus chapter 3. Titus is a little tiny book, 2/3 of the way through our New Testament, right before Philemon, right after 2 Timothy. So if you're flipping, you'll see this 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy. Then we got our guy Titus. So turn there, and I want you to see Titus chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Paul's writing this letter to this man, this evangelist, the servant. Here's what he says. Remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to obey. And here's our phrase. To be ready for every good work. To speak evil of no one. To be peaceable, gentle, showing all humility to all men. That concept of being ready for every good work has been in my mind all week. How do I get ready? How do I make sure that I am ready? Well, I want you to know first and foremost, to be ready, it takes personal initiative. It's my choice to be ready or not. A man and a wife, they lost a good friend. Somebody that they both knew and were close to. And as the wife was telling the story, she said that in conversation, her husband mentioned, oh, how sad it was that our friend died without a chance to be ready to go. And she looked at him, and she, being a Christian, he was not. She said, honey, he was 65 years old. I think he had 65 years of chances to be ready. The sad reality is that friend never took advantage of 65 years of opportunities to be ready. Being ready is a personal choice. And it takes personal initiative. In 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 17, Paul is writing to the church at Corinth. You know who he's writing about? Our guy Titus. I think that's pretty neat. In 2 Corinthians 8, verse 17, notice how Paul describes Titus. Notice what he says about the man. Starting in verse 16. But thanks be to God, who puts the same earnest care for you into the heart of Titus. For he not only accepted the exhortation, but being more diligent, he went to you of his own accord. He didn't drive a Honda, but what he meant was he went by his own accord. He made the choice. He took personal initiative to be ready for every good work. You must make the choice to be ready. If I will be ready so that God can use me, it's a choice that I make, and it's my responsibility. No matter what age you are, no matter what background you are, no matter what circumstances of life, it's your choice to be ready. But I know you've made that choice today. And so the next step, since we've made the choice to be ready so that God can use us, we have to work to get rid of sin. And I think there are 2 degrees of sin, 2 levels of sin that we must be aware of. In our sin preparation, and I'm not preparing to sin, I'm preparing to be ready. So I must get sin out of my life. I talk about it regularly, and it's really helped me out. So I want to share it with you again. We have the sins of the negative and the sins of neglect. The sins of the negative are the bad things. The bad things I've got to get rid of so I can put in the good things. Think about it. I don't know how you drink your coffee. I drink mine black. It took me 6 months to get there because it was disgusting. And quite frankly, it probably still is gross. I'm just addicted to the taste now. But sometimes I like to put a little 2% milk in my coffee. But if I fill my coffee mug up to the top, guess what? I don't have room for anything else. So in order to add something to my cup, I have to get rid of something else. Now, it's terrible that I'm associating coffee with sin. Because if anything, it's a blessing from God. Amen. But in my life, if I'm going to be ready to be used by God and to be working for God, those are good things. I have to get rid of the bad things. Notice what the text says. Turn back in my Bible just 2 pages. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 21. Here's what Paul said to another young evangelist. Therefore, I love hearing pages turn, by the way. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, which means dishonor from verse 20. If anybody cleanses himself from dishonor, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified, which means set apart, useful for the master, that is God. Notice the phrase, prepared for every good work. I've got to get negative sin out of my life so God can use me for positive blessings in my life. You've got to get rid of the negative so you can get rid of neglect. That means do the good things in your life. So in our attempt to be ready so that God can use me, I have personal initiative. I've got the sin preparation, which means getting it out of my life so that thirdly, I can come to, and I think this is one of the most important ones, the spiritual anticipation. Romans chapter 1, verse 15. Paul says on the outset of his letter, I'm not only going to speak to Greeks and barbarians and all people everywhere, verse 14. He says in verse 15, so as much as is in me, I am eager also to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. I am, what was the word? Eager. Spiritual anticipation. Do you have it in your life? This man named Robert had a dream. And in that dream, he thought he was to live only 7 more days. If you had only 7 days to live, by the way, how would you live them? What did Robert do? How did he begin to live his life? He began to study. He began to get ready. He did all in his power each day. And in the 7th day, when it came, as he neared the end of the day, something happened. All at once, it was made known to him that he wasn't going to die. He looked around, and he was glad. But he said, some 7 days will be my last 7. And he lived every day as though he were in his last day. That's a fanciful story. It's not real. But the point is, you will be in your last 7 days someday. Maybe they are right now. Are you ready? Are you working? And are you eagerly anticipating to be used by God? The very real concept for our life that we see in Paul in Romans 1:15 is he was eager to work for God. And if I'm going to be ready so that God can use me, not only am I taking personal initiative, getting rid of sin, I am eagerly anticipating the moment. And this means practically that I am in prayer preparation. I'm praying at home, God, get me ready, because I know you are. Help me to see. I got an email from a lady this week, and she asked that I would pray for her husband, and I would pray for their marriage, as she has been praying diligently for both. She has been in prayer preparation mode. She said specifically that God would give him the eyes of faith, that God would give this and that. And this prayer was one that obviously she'd been praying, that I started praying, that I hope you're praying, that we could be in prayer preparation together. What does that show? Your spiritual anticipation. Eager, so that God can use you. Prayer preparation. That means talking to my family members. When's the last time you had a conversation about serving God with your family? Maybe about a special opportunity that's been presented to you to help out other people. Not only in prayer preparation, you're in talk preparation. With yourself, with God, with one another. You're starting to mentally focus in on the task at hand. I don't know about you. I can't go to work in the morning without thinking about it the night before. I've got to get my mind right. If my mind isn't right, I struggle doing what needs to be done the next day. And so if we're going to serve our God, we've got to get our minds right, which entails me focusing in on spiritual things. Practically speaking, I think when it comes to God using us in service for the Lord, it means I have to start viewing the things that I own, my stuff, as God's stuff. Whether it's my time, my money, or material things, in reality, they're God's things, and I'm just using them for a time. Whether it's me, you, or somebody else we don't know, how is God going to use his resources through me to somebody else? That's the mental preparation. That's the talk preparation. That's the prayer preparation. That's changing my mind more closely to the mind of Christ. Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 11. Are you ready? Are you making preparation? Have you gotten to the point where you are eagerly anticipating the time that God will use you? Finally, we come to the physical preparation. I want to go to Exodus chapter 12, and that's to talk about the Israelites with the Passover. And I was going to spend quite a bit of time here because this is such a great text, but rather, let's just highlight 3 verses. If you're taking notes, it's Exodus 12, verse 11, Exodus 12, verse 39, and Exodus 12, verse 42. Here's what those 3 verses say in the context of the Passover. I know I just said a whole lot there. Here's what I meant. You know the story. When the Spirit came over all the homes in Egypt and killed the firstborn. The Bible says that there wasn't a home in which someone didn't die for the Egyptians. But for the Israelites, it was different. Why? Because they put the blood on the doorposts and on the lintel, and they did what God had told them to do. So the Spirit passed over them. Well, in that context, in the preparation for that Passover, verse 11 happens. Here's what God says to the Israelites. And thus you shall eat it. That is the Passover meal. Here's what you should do. A belt on your waist, sandals on your feet, your staff in hand. So you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Why? Verse 12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Then he goes to talk about the blood of the doorposts. What did he say? Eat it with these physical preparations already done. Why? Because verse 39. I mean 39? I meant 29. Sorry. And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. So Pharaoh rose when? In the night. He and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. Pharaoh goes on to say in the next verse, Israelites, get out. And get out now. Why is that important? God told them to prepare beforehand so that when the moment comes, you can be ready. And so verse 42, it is a night of solemn observance to the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night. They were kicked out at night. I don't think I'd really known that or recognized it at least before. And if they hadn't made physical preparations to be used by God, they wouldn't have been ready, and then Pharaoh may have changed his mind and everything would have been bad. However, they made the physical preparations so that God could work through them. So what physical preparations should I make? Physically speaking, I think as far as money is concerned, that's a resource. That's all it is. Some people make it a god, little g. It's just a resource. I think we should set aside our weekly contributions to Pleasant Valley because we have needs that need to be met here. We have ministries that are using those funds so that God can work in the world. But then even beyond that, this goes to you personally. We don't just make our contributions set aside weekly. We also, I think, we should be setting aside a private and personal amount so that we can be ready at a moment's notice. You know, I've been guilty of this. Someone is passing me in life. They obviously have a need of something. And I'm thinking, oh, good, I don't have cash. And that's been my mind before I even talk to the individual. Oh, good, don't carry cash anymore. Sorry, would love to help, but I just don't have anything. That's on me. That's on my heart. Prejudging a person before even knowing their situation. I'm not saying all situations are right and good and true. Not at all. What I'm saying is, my heart has been in a bad place at times. Because I've been burned. You have too. But just because one person burned me doesn't mean every person's out to get me. What I focus on is my heart and my preparation. So, I've done a terrible job, but what I would challenge us all to do is this. Set aside a monthly amount that you and your family, as you come across situations, you will have resources available to help people. Because you're taking a personal initiative. Yes, you're helping the church and we're doing it congregationally, but just because the church does mission work collectively doesn't mean I do it individually. Just because the church does personal work as a group doesn't mean I do it personally. Just because the church is helping the needy and feeding the hungry doesn't mean that I do it individually. Now, I may be contributing to it, and that's needed, and I don't want to devalue that, but it doesn't mean you're personally willing to do it. So you might need to make some physical preparations so God can do that through you. How can I be ready? I take the initiative. I get rid of sin. I eagerly wait for God to use me and anticipate. And I make physical preparations so that when my time comes, I can answer the call. I was going to go on not only about being ready, but the challenge of waiting. And quite frankly, it's tough. But I'll let this text speak for itself. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. If your heart isn't right with God, if you're not in a relationship with the Lord, well, then you simply cannot have peace. One more story, and the lesson will be yours. I don't know about you, my 6th grade social studies teacher made a habit to leave us in the room alone. Terrible idea. I'll never forget her. Honestly, I remember very few teachers, but I remember her. She would say, well, y'all, I gotta go to the office. So she'd head on out of there. And she said, but you got your work, you better make sure it gets done. I'm going to come back and I'm going to check it. And so she heads out the door, and we're like, party. And she had told us that she put video cameras in the vents, and she's got microphones. And I'm like, yeah, right, that's cute, but I know it's not real. So she goes off, and you know what middle schoolers do? All right, who's going to be the guard? So a guard was picked and was put at the door, and so as the guard was there watching the hallways, by the way, bad idea, young boys, young girls, don't do this. As if they haven't already. And so she's gone to the office, and we're sitting in the class, and all the other kids were acting crazy. I tell you what, those other kids. And there sat my sister. As they were standing up and doing all sorts of things, my sister sat at her desk and did her homework, read her book. And what were we doing? All sorts of crazy things. Our hearts were pounding. We were on edge, because if the teacher comes back, if the guard was trying to get to us, like not tell us that she was here, then, tattletale all of us. It was just crazy because, we were close to the edge, doing something we shouldn't, and it got your heart pounding. Well, in that moment, everyone was afraid, which made it so bad and wrongly exciting. But you know who had the most peace in the room? My sister. Because there's peace if you're doing what you ought to be doing. There's peace if you're ready for the teacher to come back. There's peace that even though you don't know when she will return, you will be found in the right place, doing the right thing. Well, as a Christian, it's the same way. Isn't there peace knowing you're in a right relationship with God? You don't know when he's going to return, but he will. And when he comes, I'll be found ready. Are you ready? I hope so. If we can help you get ready, we want to do that. It starts by being in a relationship with God. We can talk to you, study with you. Quite frankly, it's a pretty easy design. Come to Christ in faith, believing he is the Son of God. Let God save you to believer's baptism, rise to walk in newness of life. God's prepared that for you and is willing to do it. You can be ready because getting rid of sin is something you need. We want to help you. God can forgive you. We want to pray with you. Whatever your need is, let me know. Let's stand and sing this song together.